This better be better. They better be able to see me now. They better be able to hear me now. Nine Kels in the back. Just want to make sure. I'm gonna get a yes from them if I am. I'm gonna get a yes from them right now. I don't know if they can hear me, but get some gunshots. Let's see. Let's see. Can they hear me? We're getting started, man. I got a video to get to. We had to rearrange the whole setup. We had to do everything just to get this thing working because we've been talking about it all day. And we had a new camera. But as you can see, we're using the old one. It's a bit blurry. No more shots? Okay, fine. No more shots. When I get angry, we play shots on this podcast. So we're recording the podcast, and then we wanted to make sure that we get this part with you guys because we got some Chelsea fans here working on the background. Obviously, we had to whip this together because we're using a different room to get the sound and everything drowned out. But we're here, InnerViews podcast. It's your guy Tyrrell, live and direct from Toronto, Ontario. And Frank Lampard got sacked today. It was like 50 on repeat. That means I'm mad. Anyhow, like I said, Frank Lampard got sacked. I know everyone's hit you with all the videos as to what they think, instant reaction, how they feel. I kind of drowned that out, stepped aside, try to make sure that, we have a level-headed, objective vision here. You need to go soon? Yeah, man. Throw the questions out. We'll get to it. But before we start, because this was funny. We had this in the reel, and I don't know if this is how Chelsea fans feel right now. I don't know what they feel right now, but we're going to get to that. But before we get this started, I think this is probably fitting, Nine Kels.
There is no passion, there is no vision, there is no aggression, there's no fucking mindset in this football club. Nothing is there. What the hell is there in this football club? Tell me now. What the hell is there?
And the question I have to ask you guys now is, what is there? How do you feel? Frank came in, he did a good job the first season, he exceeded expectations to some, and now he's gone. And now we're back in the same cycle over again, where a new manager comes in, new crop of players, and my question is, are you surprised? Are you surprised that this happened? Because if you ask me, I'm not surprised. I'm disappointed. And I'm not even disappointed in the fact that I think Frank merited the job. Because initially, and I think I'm on record saying this in one of the podcasts way back, that I think Frank wasn't suited for the job. I don't think he deserved the job. I have a hunch as to why they gave him the job. It was toxic when Sarri got sacked. It came to a point where the fans didn't enjoy the football that was being produced. They didn't enjoy Sarri. A lot of them didn't enjoy the club. That's why I played that clip. So they brought in Frank. There was a transfer ban. They knew that expectations were extremely low, and they brought in someone to change the mood around the club. And you know what? It actually kind of felt like we were getting somewhere. It actually, because I was first to ridicule him. I was first to ridicule him and Sarri. I mean, not him and Sarri. Him and Ollie. Because I thought they got the job based on their club stature and what they did for the club, more so Frank than Ollie, although Ollie did have some moments. They hired Frank, and it was kind of like, what do we have to lose? He knows some of the youth players. He brought some in from Derby. And, we're here in a situation where we can't bring in any players, so let's steady the ship. Let's see what he can get out of them, and we'll go from there. How can you say losing 7-1 to Bayern is a success? Well, Bayern kind of won the treble, and as much as however I feel about Bayern doesn't matter, but they were a level above everyone else. So you kind of have to take that. I mean, they destroyed Barca as well. But back to Lampard. We have to look at Lampard, and we have to see this as, I know some were saying that perhaps the job was too big for him. And yes, that is true. But you have to ask yourself this. If the job was too big for him, why did they hire him? I stated why they did, why I feel they did. And I could be right, I could be wrong. But you're running this football club and your expectations and your aspirations are this high, and you can't even see it. And you brought in a manager with this low experience to manage that football club. And at the moment when I heard the news, I wasn't even irked about it. It was one of those things where it's like, one, Chelsea do that all the time. And two, I mean, he shouldn't have been there in the first place. And I think that's the biggest problem here, is that there was never any shelf life in there. There was never a moment where you felt that if could Frank actually take them to the next level? Will they back Frank? That's kind of what was going through my mind at that point. And a lot of people went back and forth with each other. Well, Frank did this, Frank did that. Frank didn't deserve the job. Frank was in over his head. He should have seen it coming. And while some of that may be true, you have to ask yourself, like I said, one, why was he hired? Two, he did well and got top four. Why did you bring him back on? And three, why do you keep following this cycle of bring in a manager, buy all these players, no direction, no plan, no nothing? And then when shit hits the fan, like it normally does, why are you instantly ready to get him out the door? I thought Frank should have stayed till at least the end of the season, at the bare minimum. And I don't want to get into the players turning on Frank, because this is actually one of the situations that before I read that Athletic story, it was like, wow, like normally when we hear this, it's players turning on the manager, players giving up on the manager. And normally what happens at these big clubs is that when managers are hired in and then they do very well, once they start doing bad, it's like an instant, well, he's got to go. Well, we're in a crisis. What we're going to be doing here throughout this whole streaming spell that we have here at the interviews is that we're going to try to get rid of sack culture, because I hate sack culture. Sack culture is the worst. It makes no sense. And I feel like, you as a supporter, at some point, your team has to suck for a bit. Even if it's for 2 games, 3 games, 4, 5, like you're going to lose some games. And you know what? It shouldn't really bother you if you're not a legitimate title contender. That was the argument that I had with some Chelsea fans this season. Heading into the season or the preseason, it came to a point where they were telling me that they were title contenders. And I said, they need a few more signings. Frank needs time. And I thought, like everyone else, if you bring in or if you spend all this money, are you not going to give the manager time to get the players all together? Are you not going to let those players settle? Are you not going to give them time to understand your concepts and what you're trying to do? And I know a lot of people were upset that, or not even upset, they've stated that Frank has no tactics. Frank is tactically inept. And while he may not be the most tactical savvy manager in the league, there was still some sort of direction of what he was trying to do. Was it right all the time? No. But could you see what he was trying to do? Yes. Fullbacks pushing forward, Ziyech coming in from the right, tucking in, combining with Reece James, which did very well. And one of the interesting things is that once Ziyech and James went down, things kind of just hit the fan, and it just never recovered. Over on the left-hand side, Werner is supposed to be cutting in central. Chilwell's supposed to push forward. And then you have Abraham or Giroud in the middle. And you would hope that Mount or Kovacic would be breaking into the box. Is that going to work every game? No. Do I expect Frank to modify things? Yes. Frank isn't perfect. We're not here to say that. I'm not here to defend Frank. The core problem about the tactic itself, or more about the players that underperformed, I mean, the only person that really underperformed, or the people that did underperform, were the players that were just brought in. And it's totally understandable based off the fact that number one is as described, and that was a weird signing, and we'll get to that in a bit. And number two, Timo, the thing about Timo is that Timo got into good positions and he just didn't finish. And sometimes that could be the end all be all. I also don't think Timo, and if you watched him last year, Timo's best position or where they maximized him at Leipzig wasn't on the left. And that was my thing, is that you bring in these players, Ziyech, which I understand, because in the Athletic article, they said that for only one of the signings that Chelsea brought in over the summer was a Frank signing. That was Chilwell, and he's done great. And I'd like to think Mendy was a Frank signing because he didn't want Kepa, and Mendy hasn't been bad. So when you look at the other guys that came in, Werner, Ziyech, Havertz, I could be Thiago Silva. Thiago Silva is a short-term fix, and I think he's done okay. I think he's actually exceeded expectations based off the fact that he's like 36 and he just came from Ligue 1, and you don't expect him to instantly transition, but that's what the best of the best players do. But you bring in Werner and you bring in Havertz, and you have all these players, 6, I think. It's going to take time. Regardless of the manager, it's going to take time for them to settle because they're not at that level where I expect them to hit the ground running right away. It also is going to take time for them to settle because they're going into a system where they kind of have to adjust their role opposed to the maximized role that they were playing at their previous clubs in the Bundesliga. Do I think Zuma has a chance under Tuchel? I think Rudiger may get the initial goal, but if he plays bad, then Zuma should come in. I think it's a bit harsh because I think Zuma's done pretty well this season. I used to kill him, and I think he's exceeded expectations. So it would be nice if we get to see Zuma come in and get a chance. But as reports are going, or the way that the reports are going, it looks like Rudiger may get that nod with Thiago Silva. And the thing about Rudiger is that just error prone at times. You never know what you're going to get. So you can have a solid game. I love his distribution out of the back, the crossfield passes, but there's always that boneheaded decision that perhaps hopefully Thiago Silva can help him cut out. But like I said, look at the top of the table. Look at the teams that are at the top. Manchester United, Man City, Leicester City. I think that's the top 3. You want to know what's key about the top 3? And I guess Liverpool is just under them. They should be 4th. But what you see with those 4 teams is that there was stability and there wasn't that much shakeup in terms of the starting 11. That's kind of the difference here, is that Chelsea brought in 6 players, I think, and they're trying to fit them all into a starting lineup with an inexperienced manager, and in a period, we're going through a pandemic, COVID and whatnot, in a pandemic where they don't have enough time on the training ground to implement ideas. So even if Frank had some ploy to get the best out of all these players, number one, we have to think about balance. How is he going to get that balance right? And number 2, along with settling in, a lot of those players have been injured this season. So you have to bring in those players. You have to get them assimilated. You have to ensure that they're healthy. And you need time on the training ground and a proper preseason to implement your ideas. This is not a cop-out for Frank. It's not a defense for Frank. But I think any other manager would have encountered the same issues based off the fact that in this COVID or during this pandemic, there's not enough time for you to implement new ideas on the training grounds. Yeah, you can make some modifications. Yeah, there can be some slight alterations. But look at United. They haven't necessarily shifted their tactics. They're still very counter-attacking based. And the only reason why Bruno works for them is because he necessarily is a number 10 that thrives in a transitional game where he has a lot of space to play those passes. Leicester City, not too many changes in terms of their starting lineup from last season. They brought in a center. They brought in defenders to slot into roles. But in terms of their attacking phase, it's the same, practically the same 6 going forward. City don't have a striker, but the core of the team is still the same. Liverpool. The only reason why Liverpool are fourth is because they've been bombarded with injuries and they've been forced to play Salah and Firmino and Mane week in, week out. But when they get healthy, because they will eventually, when they could finally put Fabinho and Henderson in that midfield, when Van Dijk and Gomez can help them push forward, then things are going to change. But like I said, that top four, it's predominantly the same starting 11s from last season. But you have Frank, and you have these high expectations for Frank, and you bring in these players that he doesn't want. And he has limited time on the training ground to implement whatever tactical scheme he was going to. And you expect him to lead a title challenge? To me, that's a big of a that's a huge stretch. That's a huge ask. That is against teams that already have an established base. That's a lot. That's too much. And on top of that, you have to accommodate these players. Let's see. Thank you for asking. Tomori, is he getting loaned out? Apparently Tomori is going to Milan to my knowledge. I could be wrong. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure Tomori is going to Milan. Interesting decision. I wonder how that's going to work because I think they have a buyback clause if he does do well. But that was the other issue here, was that on top of the fact that, and this is according to The Athletic, on top of the fact that Frank had these players with him that he didn't want, the club never got rid of them. They're upset. They want playing time. They feel like they're ill-treated. And to some degree, Frank should be talking to those players that aren't playing, at the very least. And he should know better. So I understand that gripe. But as a board, whoever's running the show up there, you should try and get those players out on loan, try and get them sold. And I think they let him down here. I think a lot of these problems stem from the Chelsea board, and it happens at manager after manager after manager. And at some point, something's got to give. You would hope, but I don't think it's going to happen. Look who they brought in. They brought in Thomas. Thomas is an upgrade on Frank. Let's get that straight. In terms of what he's done in his managerial career, in terms of his philosophy, in terms of his pragmatism, Thomas is an upgrade. But what are you expecting from him? I don't think Thomas is going to turn that side around and have them miraculously become title contenders. I don't know if they finish in the top four, but the only reason why I give them a fighting chance to is because I expect Leicester to eventually drop off. And I don't know. Well, I don't know about Spurs. So we'll see. I expect Everton. I expect Villa to eventually drop off. But that is who Chelsea at this moment have to try and eclipse Spurs. Historically, you expect them to. Will they? We have to see how the players react to Tuchel. We have to see if Thomas could get the best out of those players. They brought him in because they wanted a German manager to help Havertz and Werner adapt. They want to get the best out of him. I think that's it's a problem, and it's a problem that I don't think could be fixed. Where should Frank go now? I think Frank is expecting a child soon, so I think he's going to take some time off with his wife and settle in. And then from there, I'm not too sure where he goes next. That's a really tough ask. I think hopefully he learns from this, and hopefully another club will give him a chance, because the funny thing here is that hypothetically, I think that, let's say even if they just get Werner, I think that if they just get Werner, they don't get Havertz, perhaps they get Declan like he wanted them to. And it's funny because Frank is smart enough that he knew the issues in that squad and he tried to fix it. Are they players, household names, players that you may like? No, not really. I mean, not too many fans outside of the top four fan base are going to really be thrilled about Declan Rice, but I think they definitely could use a Declan Rice, and I can understand why Frank wanted him. Not too many household names. I mean, not too many, but he does a good job for Burnley. It's the center back that Frank wanted. So I can understand that. But even if you just bring in Werner, I feel like if Chelsea just keep the players that they had last season, added Ziyech, bring in Werner, it's not too bad. I think accommodating Havertz was a big issue. I think not playing Werner in his natural position. I still feel like they could have done without him because you already have two strikers. Tammy's having a great season. Giroud was doing well. You can't play him every game, but he's still useful. I understand the depth thing. But they had a rotation there. Pulisic, Hudson Odoi, Ziyech that could rotate in. And if you needed Werner, I understand that. But yeah, it's just one of these things where how could you blame a manager for failing when you put him in a position where he can't succeed? And I think that was the thing here. I don't know what the shelf life, I don't know what they thought or how long they thought Frank would last. I don't know if they thought he could have finished in fourth last season, but he did. But given the circumstances, there was really no need to go out and really buy players that didn't really fit what you were trying to build there. And it looked like Frank's trying to build something there. You didn't need Havertz. You didn't need Timo. At least if you're going to get Timo, play him in a position where he was scoring 30 league goals. What are you guys saying right now? Is it true Lampard doesn't give... according to reports, apparently Lampard didn't give instructions tactically. Apparently some of the players, that was their biggest gripe. Whether that's true or not, I don't know if we're ever going to find that out. Manager who couldn't get it right. Yeah, like the Neymar and Mbappe thing. And the Neymar and Mbappe thing is difficult because they have a lot of player power inside the dressing room. And I don't know who's running the show in the dressing room. I don't know which players are revolting. But yeah, that's the big thing that you have to ask yourself. I mean, even if you look at PSG's run last season in the Champions League, he found a way, Tuchel, and this is why I say he's pragmatic. So he'll do what he can to try and maximize the players while keeping a balance in the squad. But it was heavily reliant on Neymar creating chances because throughout that squad, no one else could. Ander Herrera couldn't. Verratti was out for large spells. Paredes was okay. Di Maria wasn't at his best towards the end of the season. They never really got it right with Icardi and Sarabia. Mbappe needed Neymar to create. So you kind of see where I'm going with this. Neymar is a top 5 player in the world when he's healthy and fully firing. So I want to see how he's going to play Havertz and Werner. A lot of speculation is that perhaps they do go 4-2-3-1. Werner ahead of Havertz. I'm not too sure if that's going to be the play, but I would be very surprised if we don't see Werner playing centrally at some point. Because even last season, like, yes, he could play on the left on the rare occasion, but Timo Werner was at his best when he was playing with Pulisic or with Nkunku behind him, where he had the freedom to float and get himself into good areas. He's good at that. The finishing, that's confidence. That comes with time. When the goals come, they come. The most important thing is that he's still giving maximum effort and still getting into those areas. Sometimes we're a bit too harsh when players miss chances, and yes, they do define games, but I don't think he's broken. I don't think it's a case of like the last legs of Fernando Torres. So that shouldn't be an issue. What else are we saying here? Pep comment on Frank's. Yeah, it's sack culture. There is no real long-term project. I think managers that do get that opportunity, it's very far and few. Like Klopp was in a great position where the board backed him. They brought in players that he needed to take them to the next level. And Klopp and that scouting team did a very good job of finding players within the league that made the difference. I full admiration for Klopp and how he built that squad. The Alexander Arnolds of the world and the Robertsons, Wijnaldum, Milner on a free. Trying to think of other players. Henderson was already there, but there was a base in the Premier League that he really was able to pull from those players. He did bring in Mane from the Premier League as well, not for a very high price. Same with Salah and Firmino. And when they had to spend big, they got it right. They spent big on Van Dijk. That's someone you spend big on. They spent big on Fabinho. Makes sense. The only player they spent big on that it hasn't worked out is Naby Keita, and that's more so to injuries. And then they brought in Allison. So yeah, there's really no long-term project. And frankly, I don't know if Frank warranted it. That was always my thing, was that I felt that he was the wrong hire from the get-go based on the club's aspirations, based on the lack of experience. And even though an experienced manager may have done a better job in navigating through not having his own signings and whatnot, here at Chelsea, it always ends up the same way. So, I mean, it's a tough one to call. You can't have it both ways, you know? Um, Tuchel's tactics. Well, you know what? I have to go back to some of the Dortmund games because I think that would give me a better idea as to how he navigated through things, because the PSG system was very I mean, he really accommodated to get the best out of Neymar while having a balance throughout that squad, because he even made some weird decisions, like Marquinhos was playing as the holding midfielder at one point, and then he'd drop in and make a back three when they'd push forward, and they would have I have the board here, but it's going to be tough for me to kind of navigate through all that right now. But yeah, he had Marquinhos dropping in with Kimpembe and Thiago Silva, and then they would push Juan Bernat and Thomas Meunier forward. Neymar would come in, and Di Maria would come in, and then they'd have Mbappe on the touchline as well. They varied their positions. It was sometimes fluid because they did play 4-4-2 at times, or 4-2-2-2. But like I said, he's not coming into a job where it's going to be a set system and he's going to try to get these players to abide by that system. He's going to find a way for them to attack as much as they can, but he's going to assess the squad and find a way to get that balance. And whether that's a 4-3-3 or 4-2-3-1, I've heard some people say that perhaps a three-man backline would be better until they get a natural player like Declan Rice in there, or if they get a ball playing central midfielder, because they really do lack that right now. Mason Mount's been great, a lot of energy, but they need someone who could play passes from that midfield zone, and they don't really have that at the moment. What else do we got here? Ideal XI for Wolves. That I'm not too sure. I'm so sorry. I don't really do predictions because I don't really care if I get it wrong. Like I said, hey, if I ever say anything wrong, come to me, let me know. I am very accessible and we could talk about it. Just do it in a polite manner. Some people go a bit too crazy on the comments, which is why I'm going to stream now at times so we could really have a discussion. You know what I'm about. But yeah, let me know. But I don't know what the XI is going to be for Wolves. No idea. Tuchel speaks English. Yeah, that is key. I think that he'll be able to establish that base. The thing about Tuchel, the one thing that people kill, or the one issue with Thomas, is that at every job, he ends up getting into it behind the scenes with the hierarchy, whether it be at Dortmund with their board and PSG with their board. So that's kind of why I'm like, I mean, you guys come in here and you get rid of Frank and you bring in a guy who's probably going to clash with you in the next 12 to 18 months. So that's the worrying thing about this, is that there's no real stability, you know? That's the problem. That's my biggest issue, is that at some point that board, they need to, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not that they need to have a long-term plan because things happen, but in terms of player recruitment and manager, there needs to be a fine line as to getting those two to go in hand with each other. That's the biggest thing. And they don't do that. Like for example, this is that you brought in this inexperienced manager and you bring in a bunch of players that don't really fit into a balanced system when he wanted to bring you balance. You see what I'm saying? And in the past, it's worked because in the past, they pre-pep. So from Antonio Conte's last title win. Was it Antonio Conte's last title win? Yes. From Conte's last title win to, let's say, the year that Ronaldo left, the Premier League was in some really bad shape. There was no extremely great team. And when I mean extremely great team, I mean Mourinho 0405. I'm talking about Wenger early 2000s. I'm talking about United that won 3 in a row. We didn't really get into that level of greatness, or we haven't really seen that level of greatness until now Pep and Klopp. So Chelsea were able to have all this talent. They rode Lampard and Drogba, Ivanovic, that core group of players until they won the Champions League. Okay. Since that, they've won 2 Premier League titles. And although that was great, what happened the following seasons? And on top of that, look at the competition that they were playing. Look at the teams that were challenging for the title. They should have won when you have Eden Hazard and Diego Costa and Fabregas. I expect them to win. Ngolo Kante the second year with Matic. But now you're in a position where that method of buying a bunch of talented players and hoping that you find a manager where it sticks is a bit tough because there are great teams in this league now. Pep and City aren't going anywhere. Klopp and Liverpool are having a poor run of form, but it's being overblown by the media, and it's not going to last. There's too much talent in that squad for them to dip that far. United, as much as I don't really understand how they're doing what they're doing, they have talent. So having talent and throwing a manager, the high-profile manager, the new lavish, sexy manager, that's not going to work. I'm hearing Nagelsmann. I'll tell you right now, if they plan to get rid of Tuchel and bring in Nagelsmann, I think Nagelsmann is great. If I'm him, I don't take this job because there are no guarantees. If I'm him, I stay away from it. Unless that board guarantees me control of the transfers or I get the last say and I know that I have an extended window where I can build this squad, why would I take it? But enough about my rants. Let's see. What else do we got here? What else we got? I always thought the signing of Havertz and Werner are the reason behind the sacking. Lampard's style of play does not suit them. It's easier to blame and sack the manager. Yeah, I agree with that to a degree. I also feel that they bought Havertz and Werner because they were there and they were available and they wanted to hoard great players. I understand the logic is that you have Havertz and hopefully at some point one manager that you hire will get the best out of him and you can build around him. But it's not necessarily a method of success with no planning behind buying him. And yeah, I feel like that kind of really clashed with what Lampard was trying to do there. And whether it would have been successful without Havertz or not, not too sure. But at some point, the board has to be held responsible. I think that's the biggest thing here, is that at the end of the day, we're going to always blame the manager. We're always going to side with the players. But at some point, if I'm a Chelsea fan, which I'm not, but if I was, at some point, you have to hold the board. You have to hold everyone behind the scenes accountable. It can't always be the manager. Sometimes it is. I'm not saying Frank was going to lead them to a Premier League title. But at the same time, I don't think they've placed him in a position to lead them to a Premier League title. I don't think that with all these signings, I don't think they placed him in a position where he could have finished in the top 4. I know they added more talent, but like I said, with not enough time on the training ground, with a lot of those players, if they were Premier League players, I would understand that. But you brought in young players that played in different leagues and they need time to adapt, especially with this pandemic going on. It's not the same, especially without a full preseason to get things running and to get your ideas across. Every week there's a game, midweek and the weekend. Sometimes they're playing 3 games in 7 days. That was never the case. Yes, there's a spell, like I think now in January, February with the Champions League, they do play 3 games a week, 2 games a week. But in those November, December months, especially when you're knocked out of like the domestic cups, some managers get 6 days on the training ground to stamp their authority on the situation. Leaves me to the point of Aston Villa. They possibly should have got relegated last season. Same manager, same philosophy, more time on the training ground. It's working now. Everton, Ancelotti brought in some talent, not enough talent to really shift the balance of the side, but brought in some talent, stuck with his philosophy. They're flying now. Stability. Not bring in 7 players and hope that it works because they're supposed to be the next big things. Let's continue. Deadwood remains in the team. Yeah. I think my biggest thing with the Deadwood is that if they're the ones behind the scenes causing the issue, it's like, hey, like, you're not even playing. Yeah, at some point the board has to get them out of there. But they didn't want Frank in to begin with, and we've learned that. So we keep moving. Which team do I support? I keep telling you guys, I'm probably the only objective YouTuber, not the only, but one of the tactical guys that is objective. I know all the other guys that do videos, tactics videos. I think most of them, or there's a few that they follow a certain team. To clarify things, I'm not an Arsenal fan, but a lot of Arsenal fans support this channel. So I think it would make sense that I'm going to do Arsenal videos for the Arsenal fans because a lot of them support the channel. It's just how it works. And then there's algorithms that we'll get into on another day. Maybe Friday we'll get into algorithms. But I do Arsenal because I have a lot of Arsenal fans that subscribe. If there were more Chelsea fans and more City fans and more United fans, I'd probably do all those games too. But I watch everything. So that's why we're going to try and stream to find that balance here. Jorginho, I'm shocked Jorginho's still there. I had really high hopes for him before he joined. But when he was at Napoli, and he's kind of let me down, and I'm kind of disappointed about that. But yeah, I just don't think that's the fit. And it looks like Billy looks good. So hope that Billy stays fit because he's young, and I just like his willingness to always be on the ball, and he always wants to play that line breaking pass, and I think that's key. So I hope, because I don't know what Tuchel's going to do coming in with the young players or whatnot, but I hope that we get to see more of Billy Gilmore as the season progresses. Oh, gotta go now. Feel backstabbed that I believe Lampard is the way that Chelsea. Yeah, Lampard. It's a tough thing because when you read that Athletic article, it feels just like Lampard knew what the squad needed and knew he had an idea as to how to get them out of that funk that they've been in terms of sack manager, players being lackadaisical, players resting on their laurels, not giving the most for their club. And you would expect a guy like Frank to know that because he fought for that club. And although he got managers sacked, you can never question Frank's work rate and effort on the pitch in West London. So he knows, he understands that. And that's why I believe him when he says that there's certain players at the club that are not giving their all for Chelsea Football Club. And I think that's one of the toughest things to swallow if you're a Chelsea fan, is that this guy was actually trying to build a foundation. But it's kind of hard to successfully build that foundation when you're not placed in a position to, and when the board already knows what they want. And the one thing that I could say is that when they were signing those players, a lot of people were saying it was Lampard pull. And I came to a point where it was like, I don't know if Lampard, because I think he's highly intelligent. If I could look at these signings and say, it's kind of top heavy, lopsided, I think Frank knows that too. And there was always a hunch that it wasn't fully sanctioned by him to get those players. And it was very reassuring to know that Frank is smart, as smart as we think he is, because it says that he only wanted Chilwell, and I believe that. And I believe he did want Ziyech too. And they said that he wanted Aubameyang in January, but I feel like he wanted Ziyech. I know he wanted Mendy because he didn't trust Kepa. I know that he wanted Chilwell, obviously, but it's the Werner Havertz situation where I feel like even when Werner was available, he was like, why not? But I think the Havertz one was always the interesting thing because I can understand why people were so high on him in terms of the ceiling that he can hit. But if you watch him last season, there were some flaws, and I was like, he could grow, but not worth that money. What else are we going? Where else are we going? Yeah, I know Tuchel. Yeah, it's gonna be I want to see him handle. Where else are we going? Same cycle all over again, but now why would next manager play youth players? I know that's my biggest fear with Tuchel. I don't know if he's gonna give the kids a chance because his job is on the line. Is he going to trust the kids or the experienced players to finish top 4? Because I'm pretty sure that's in the 18-month contract. We brought you in here to save this season. So hopefully he gives them a run, and because, they were building something. Tuchel is better than Lampard at pressing. Lampard's pressing system was unbalanced and had a lot of flaws. Yes, that is true. That is true. I have no gripes with that. I do think Tuchel's the better manager. There's no question about that. And whether they were waiting for him, they could have. I'm not going to say they could have done this now, because if you feel like the manager is not what you want, you get rid of him. But I don't know. It'll just leave a bad taste in everyone's mouth. But yes, Tuchel is the better manager. So from that standpoint, the board, you can't really knock the board in their thought process there. But my thing was always, and we've seen Chelsea prime managers out of situations that they don't want to be in. And Tuchel had his issues with PSG going into this season. So it was like, if you really wanted him, why didn't you just pull the plug? If you didn't want Frank, I know he finished top 4, but what does that matter? He finished top 4. Clearly loyalty doesn't matter to the club. They'll sack you whenever they feel like they need to. So why does him finishing in the top 4 mean that you have to keep him? That was kind of my thing. But yeah, no planning in the club. We at some point, Roman and Marina and Petter and everyone behind the scenes, you guys got to hold them accountable. And when I mean, yes, they could win the FA Cup this season, or yes, they could finish top 4, but I always hold the top clubs, the Chelseas, the Man Uniteds, Man Cities, the Liverpools, at the standard, even Arsenal back in the day. And I think they're trying to do this now, but I hold them at a standard where you're not just trying to win one Premier League, or you're not trying to just finish in the top 4. You're trying to continuously dominate. You're trying to win yearly. And I know Chelsea have won Premier Leagues in between, and at City were the same thing through the Pellegrini, the Mancini era. But that's why I respect Klopp and Pep so much, is that it's go. We are trying to win, more so Pep. We're trying to win everything. And I think that is what Chelsea Football Club has lost over the last decade, is that Mourinho era that kind of had that crop of players that lasted until 2012. They try to win everything. And I don't see that in these players, more so even this new generation of players. That's why I can never really defend them that much. But that is what Chelsea Football Club is missing right now. And it's tough to say that this appointment is really going to change that. And it's my gripe with why clubs, after 4 or 5 games of losing, it's a crisis. Like, relax. Things don't naturally all come together. You need to have some bad before you hit some good. But yeah, I'm not a Real Madrid fan. I was going to put up the Toni Kroos jersey because I have one, because we were just trying to put this all together last minute, because our actual recording room is much better than this, but this is the free room that we got right now. What else we see? What system can make Werner, Havertz, Ziyech all together work? From what I've seen so far, Werner prefers a system with another striker, but with Havertz there, it needs to be 3 in the mid. You see, you'd assume that it should be 4-2-3-1, and then you have the 2 pivots sitting a bit deeper and protecting the back 4. Then you have 1 fullback pushing forward and 1 hold. So you're essentially attacking with 5 and defending with 5. But I think that's what Tuchel's going to have to really figure out, because Werner and Havertz together, it works. Like, they're both capable of pressing from the front, and Havertz is disciplined enough to ensure that the 6 doesn't dictate the tempo of the game from deeper positions. But with Havertz, it also helps that his role, he could play in those tight spaces between the lines, but he also gives you an aerial threat in the box. So I always felt that they were going to go Havertz, Werner, and if they wanted to go long, they could play balls into Havertz and have Werner running off the last shoulder, and then having Werner float, because even if you have Werner float, you have Havertz there who could, take center backs with him and occupy the center backs. And then I think one of the best things this season, besides Mason Mount, has been that Ziyech Reece James combination. I think that's been really key for them. So it's tough because they were playing the lesser sides when that combination was thriving, and then both of those players got hurt. But even when you see Ziyech and Azpilicueta, you could tell that Ziyech doesn't really trust him going forward, and Azpilicueta didn't time his runs going forward. And Reece James is just a better crosser. So I really think that with those two players going out on the right-hand side, that's where things really start to go bad for Chelsea. But I would keep Ziyech on the right for the time being. And I don't want to say anything about Hudson Odoi, but I'm not fully sold yet. Need to see more games, need to see more consistency from him. But I feel like the competition between those two could really help him elevate his game. Hi, man. If it was not Lampard, Sack would come early. No, I don't support Arsenal, man. But like I said, I appreciate all the Arsenal supporters because you guys have been there through with me since day one. So have the Chelsea supporters. So I can't really say that. Just that there's a bit more Arsenal supporters, which is why I try to do more Arsenal videos, and which is why I've taken some time now. I should be finishing my my video for Martin, but I'm gonna try and get that out maybe tomorrow. Although Arsenal do play tomorrow, so I may get that out the next day. But I feel like, I used to pod all the time. So now I'm like, why not pod with you guys? Why not do the podcast with you guys? Let's stream it out. Let's get it done. And we'll go from there. Tuchel is very good with young players where he can have full control. Yes, that is right. If there's one thing, that's a good point. And I should have stated that. And I feel like I was possibly getting there. But if there's anything that you could say from Tuchel is that, yes, he has done well with younger players. Dembele, he gave Christian Pulisic his chance at Dortmund, and even at PSG when they weren't essentially being able to attract the top players. Like Kimpembe came in through the ranks, and there were a few other young players that he did give chances to. I think it was Diaby and Carrere, and I'm trying to think who else he did bring in, but players did get a chance with him. So that is actually positive. And I feel like I said, he's a pragmatist. So he's going to do what's best for the squad. And it could be a good interim managerial appointment. And that's crazy to say because of how good he is. But like I said, my only doubt with Tuchel, my only issue is based off history, just it doesn't rub people the right way and vice versa. So if he could fix that, then, this could work. But you always have to hold your doubts. Big fan. How do I donate? You donate by just showing up and joining the conversation and just watching the videos, man. I'm never going to ask you guys for anything. I don't even run ads on my page. So like I said, I'm just here taking the YouTube stride as it comes. And when the channel blows, it blows. If it never blows, it never blows. But just appreciate you, mystery man. Keep doing your thing, and love your support. I hope you make the stream available to be watched later. Yeah, man, I'm gonna have it later, and I may speak on Frank in audio format later on, or maybe tomorrow on the podcast. Tuchel utilized Neymar as a false 9 top forward who dropped into the midfield. Yeah, that does work. That does work. The thing about Havertz, and I think that's going to be interesting as development, is that yes, he can play that role when he drops deeper and he does link play, but we need to see, like, it's a bit slower. That's probably unfair to say. He's young, but he gives you both. It's like a dual threat because he drops deep, he can link play. But with Havertz, if you watch him, is that once he does link play in those midfield zones, he's instantly sprinting into a position where he can get onto a cross. And I think that's key. And that's why I said that with him and Werner up front, that could be the way going forward. It's just difficult because, like I said, that if they play that way, then what happens to Tammy? Tammy's had a good season. Tammy in games where they've needed goals, he's played well. I think Giroud just doesn't want to leave, or they can't get him anywhere. But Giroud's still a factor. I think that's going to be interesting to see how he navigates through that, because I really do enjoy that, having those players there. So it'll be interesting, but that's how I feel about that. We could see Havertz in that sort of false nine role. I just don't want Werner on the left on a week to week basis, because we've seen him do really, really well when he plays through the middle and has the ability to float. And that's going to be interesting to see how they get the best out of Werner, because that's why Tuchel's being hired, right? The German connection. Tuchel or Allegri? Allegri's the winner. I think for this situation, they're both pragmatists. So I don't know what fans were expecting from Allegri long term, because I mean, we've seen him at Milan. He's always thrived in Serie A when he's had the best club in the league. So I was interested to see him come into Chelsea when he didn't have the best club in the league, to see how he's able to get the best out of those players. But he's a man manager. There's no set defined system. He can play the diamond 4-3-3, could play a back three, but it changes by the opponent, and he's usually trying to maximize his players towards exploiting the opposition's weaknesses. Upset that Lampard is gone, but somehow relieved that I might see Chelsea play actual football. Hey. Can we talk about, because we're gonna end this soon, because I gotta work on that video. Can we talk about crossing? Why do you guys hate crossing? Because everyone is like, when their team isn't winning, they're always like, oh, well, we just threw in like a jillion crosses or like a million crosses, and we don't like that. But like, if you watch every single team in this league, barring United, because like I said, I don't really think they have a set defined system, City are getting crosses into the box on the regular. They're exploiting those half spaces. Kevin De Bruyne, you think that you want him to drop deeper, or you want to force him wide so he's not in between the lines. But when he delivers a cross, it's a problem. Liverpool have Alexander-Arnold and Robertson higher up the pitch to get those crosses in. Leicester, I mean, they try to get Vardy in behind, but they still have Albrighton playing. They still get the fullbacks, wingbacks higher up the pitch. Spurs with Reguilon pushing forward, Aurier, Doherty. Like, they're still getting crosses into the box. Yes, and yes, crossing isn't a problem, but that's not necessarily on the manager. That's where I killed the players. I used to play fullback. So when I'm getting, and I wasn't the best crosser, I can admit that. Whenever I got into those wider areas, when I did play fullback for a short period, I'm just trying to hoof the ball into the box and hope that someone gets onto it. So when these players get into those wider areas, Arsenal, the same thing. The Arteta thing was that he wants them to play through the wider areas. Well, teams really congest the middle of the pitch, so it's kind of hard to bypass that. Unless their defensive shape is broken, or it's not compact, or they break out of it. So when you get into those wider areas, those to execute and deliver and pick out markers. And I see it so many times on so many occasions where those wide players get into those half spaces or get to the byline, and they don't even look up when they deliver the cross. And I think that's the problem. Crossing is a problem. It's more one-dimensional Chelsea. Yes, I think that's the biggest gripe with Frank. And I think I agree. I had that gripe with Frank. You kind of knew what you were getting. And I don't know if that's strictly personnel. We'll see what we get from Tuchel, because they don't really have a passer in the midfield. So that's the biggest issue, right? Mount is energetic, and you could get the 1-2s, and he makes runs into the box, and he's gritty. He kind of does everything. Kovacic, he's a ball carrier, so he can evade challenges, but he's not breaking lines. Kante isn't breaking lines. Jorginho, we're not getting into that today, but Chelsea fans know what they're getting from Jorginho. So at that point, then you kind of have to go out of the wider areas. Werner and Pulisic like to cut in. Chilwell's a good crosser. Billy could be the key. And like I said, I hope they really when you look at it, like Billy, he's extremely young, but he kind of gives you what you were getting from Verratti. Obviously, not at that level, but that could be the difference maker here. And I want to see if Tuchel actually, tries to pull that plug and tries to place him in that position and play him regularly. But yeah, even on the right hand side, Ziyech, you know what you're getting from that left foot, and I feel he could be a game changer. Has to stay healthy, and then James, for the most part this season, his deliveries have been better. He has had a slow start since coming back from injury, so I want to give him a bit more time before I kill him. Tammy is incredibly underrated, and he proved me wrong because I didn't think he'd be this good following that season on loan. But yeah, big shout out to Tammy. I think he definitely deserves an air horn because I think he's done great, and I didn't think he would. So shout out to him. Kind of early, but do you think Tuchel? Who do you? I'm gonna hold that. Ask me that question at the end of the season because I need to see him get there. But I have no idea who we'd want to bring in. I feel like as we go through the season and we kind of have an idea as to how he is going to have them play, then I could answer that question. Are you trying to convert me to an Arsenal fan? I do admit now I watch them a bit more, and it's a bit frustrating when they make let's an example that I could give you. Like a Aubameyang and Lacazette missing chances that they should score. I think I've watched way more Arsenal games than I have in my lifetime in this one season. So that's interesting. Is Kai Havertz that? That's funny. Um, what else do we got here? What are your opinions on Giroud and his future at Chelsea? I think Giroud should. I like Giroud. There's nothing not to like about Giroud. There's everything to like about Giroud. I think he's a useful squad player. You can't play him every week, but he's definitely a player that if you have in your squad and you're trying to make top 4 title or even a title push, in certain games you need his skill set and his traits in certain games to link play in tight spaces to play balls into. Like I like Giroud, big fan. I obviously like to see him play more, but under the circumstances and the skill and the talent in the squad, that's just how it is, right? But if you could keep Giroud happy, get him some games here and there, uh, big asset unless you're paying him top dollar. If he wants top dollar, then you gotta let him go. News just broke that Lampard didn't even want Havertz and yeah, like I said, man, I think I actually believe those reports that he didn't want Havertz and Werner. I think he was okay with Werner later on because he was available and you could plug him in. But I think the Havertz thing, 100% he was not having that. Do you think United are favorites to win the Premier League at the moment? No. Is it crazy that I don't think they're title contenders? I think we got a lot of football to play. If they're where they're at if the position that they're in now, if they're there in March, then they got my attention. But I just think that the way that United play, sorry, Chelsea fans, take a quick side break. In terms of the manner in which they play, I just don't think it's sustainable. I think they're winning a lot of games based off talent. They have one of the 3 or 4 best squads in the league based off talent. And I think those players are getting them over the hump. And I'm going to do a stream on United later on this week. But in terms of Ollie himself, he's maximizing what they're good at, and bringing in Bruno and bringing in players like Cavani who are able to play in transition, that helps. But I just don't think they're good enough to last the course. And I don't think that the manner in which they're playing in now, I don't think it's sustainable. And if you watch the games, the eye test, opposed to simply just focusing on the results, like they get away with a lot, and it's more than the penalty things. I don't want to hear the penalty stuff, but there are a lot of games where they just get by, and in a league where perhaps they're the best team or there's maybe only one team near them, that's acceptable, but there are other teams around them that are just as good and better, and I don't think that they're going to be able to sustain what they're doing now. Switch, we need you do need to sell the deadwood, but that happens probably in the summer. That's a process. But yeah, when you're hearing stuff about like Kepa needing to have a shoulder around him and Marcus Alonso not coming back after he got subbed at halftime. Like, who are you? No disrespect to Marcus Alonso, played a key role in Chelsea when they went under Kante for games. But at this point, man, come on, Marcos. Like you should not be throwing a fit. And I don't know who else. I don't want to finger point and whatnot, but come on, man, you could do better. Uh, I'm not gonna put Havertz and that man in the same conversation yet. I'm gonna give Havertz some time because that guy is for as limited as he is, he's really good at what he does. Shout out to Thomas. Anyone else wondering why Rudiger started over Zoom in the past couple of Premier League games? I'm not too sure. If someone could help us out as to why Rudiger's played, then we'll go. Ollie was in the same position as Lampard multiple times. Yes, he was. He definitely was. The difference in the boards are just a bit different. United don't really. I think that's a good thing about them is that they don't really pull the plug mid-season unless they really have to. But in terms of Ollie himself, when they both were appointed the full-time job, I thought that they were one of the 3 to 5 worst managers in the league based off experience and what they were doing. And I know the United fans are really out here trying to state that we need to respect Ollie, and I'll get to that later this week. But we don't really have to. We don't really have to. We could acknowledge that he's doing very well, but we don't really have to give him much credit. There's still a lot of season to play. But we're gonna really deep dive into United later on this week. I think Friday, because we got games every other day. Ollie's putting more hopes on individual brilliance of Bruno and Paul than his. Well, I don't think he's putting more hopes. I think that's. I don't think he's a reactive manager. They're better equipped to play on the counterattack, and they have not developed a manner in which they can successfully break down teams when they sit a bit deeper, and that's a big problem because a majority of the league is going to sit deeper against United, and I think that's the problem. And at some point, like I said, that individual brilliance flares out. So that's my thing with them. United, one of the best league teams in Europe for 2020. Why was Ollie's job on the line? You have to expound on that. I think United did very well in the league because, in the Champions League, and they still got knocked out of the group. That's why I can't take them serious. But I think they had got some good results there because, like I said, there's not much time for teams to be on the training ground and really hammer in the tactics and how they're going to approach games because there's a game every other day and players are recovering and they can't get everyone on the training ground. It's tough. But one of the key things to United has been stability and maximizing the speed and the counterattack and talent, to say the least. Why don't I do more videos about Serie A and the Bundesliga? To be honest, just time. Back in the day when this channel wasn't really successful, I did do a lot of those games. And the thing about it is that I normally do watch those games. Like I watched Inter against Juve and how Juve's press was really poor and Barella was able to find so much space. I did watch that game. I watched Bayern lose to Gladbach. I watched Dortmund the other day. It's just time just to get everything done. And you got kind of have to pick your battles. And I think that's why. But I always try to, and I'm gonna keep trying to. That's all I can say about that. Are you a Chelsea? No, I'm not a Chelsea fan. I cannot wait until United capitulates. I mean, hey, they may not. They may not. I'm not going to say that they can't win the league. I just don't think they will. And if they do, well, hey, come back, United fans, and I'll hear it. I don't really care. I hope we never see Company as Man City manager. Yeah, this club legend stuff has to end. Like, hire managers that are competent and good enough to do the job. Predictions for this match week. I don't even really know who's Chelsea Wolves. I don't know what to expect from Chelsea. Arsenal Southampton. I expect Arsenal to bounce back with their full team. Spurs Liverpool. That's tough. That's tough, but I'll tell you that Liverpool have to win that game. I think they really do need to win that game. And then I don't really know who else is playing, to be honest. I got to check myself. But I will be doing videos for a game each day, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, guys, I think we've been on here for like an hour. What formation? Okay, we'll wrap up these questions on Lampard fully, because this turned from a podcast to like an entire stream, which I don't mind. Love talking to you guys. We'll answer a few more questions, and then I gotta go and get back to work. The league record for 2020 was one of the best. Yes, they got knocked to the Champions League and lost like 2 league games at the beginning of the season, but was it really that bad? The one thing I'll say about United without going crazy, because I'm going to get into it on Friday, it depends on your expectation. And that's my thing. Like, I'm not that old, but I lived through the Ferguson era, throughout all of it, actually. Like, I lived through it. And the level of expectation there and now, it's like, it's a bit stark. Like, United fans and everyone around United feel like they're the biggest club in England. And my thing with Ollie is kind of similar to how I felt about Frank, is that you could give Ollie as much time as you want. But unless there's a significant drop off in the league, and COVID, this pandemic could be it, because the amount of games that teams are playing and the fact that Liverpool and City have hit astronomical levels over the past 3 seasons, there is an expected burnout. The fact that we are here and just accepting kind of the mediocrity and the performances and whatnot. I know results matter, but like I said, if they win the league, then, the tune will change. But what I see from them is that at some point, I don't think that this is sustainable. And I think that's the kind of the gripe with them. I think the Champions League is huge. I don't think great clubs get bounced in the group stage. I think that's a huge thing. And I think that should definitely be held against them. And what they're doing in the league from a point standpoint is remarkable. I know last year I got into an argument with someone and they were like, "Oh, well, he won like the last 14 games, or they went on some unbeaten run." But my point, while that is great, the issue is, why did they have to go on that 14 game or 13 game unbeaten run to end the season to still not finish with 70 points, or to still only get top 4 on the final day? That's my thing with them. My thing is, why you start the season terribly and you go on this run, but based off evidence, how do I know that you're going to sustain this? Because with Ollie, it feels like at one point during the season, they go on this incredible run. It's happened in every season he's been there. Incredible run. And then after that incredible run, whether it's at the start or the end of the season, there's a run of form where they do poorly. Can they change that this season? And that's my thing. That's kind of the reason why I'm not fully sold on him yet. But like I said, I'll get more into that on Friday. Could Klopp's job be on the line if Liverpool come out of the top 4? That's a big ask. I don't think they will. And I don't think that they will pull that plug. Liverpool, he's a cult hero there. And I think unless things get really bad in the dressing room or he walks, I don't think they're going to sack him based on that. But we'll see. We'll wrap this up quickly. Tuchel will be sacked before the end of... I try to be optimistic for every manager that I feel deserves to be there. So you very much could be right, and history says that you are right, but we will see. And final question. To be honest, always want to coach and whatnot, but as of right now, like, I just do this because, I got time to do it, and I've always wanted to do it my own way. So this is my way of, like, I used to write for a bit, but like now it's like, yeah, I'm going to present this to you guys. No real set plan. But what I will say is I don't want to just be a YouTuber. So I don't know how long this is going to last, but I'm here. I'm here to talk football. I'm here to break games down. And like I said, I'm accessible. You guys have me on Instagram, Twitter. You can message me here. I always try to get to them. And like I said, I felt like we had to talk about this. And this was the start of the streaming thing that we're going to do. So whenever there aren't games, or even sometimes when I just can't do a video, I may hop on stream and get this done. And we'll talk about games, whether it be a Chelsea game, Arsenal game, City game, just to ensure that we kind of get everyone covered. Yeah. Red Pill Lens, Friday, all United, an hour at the minimum. We're going to talk United. Tell all your United friends. We're going to have a conversation about them. I have lots to say, and we're going to get to it. You're kind of right. But even those guys, the 3 out of the 4, we're going to talk about them too in depth. So I want to make sure that you're there for that. So Friday, and there will be no streaming issues like today, which was embarrassing. Apologize for that, guys. But like I said, we're gonna get back to it. Once we are finished converting you into an Arsenal fan, you should join AFTV. Troops don't want the smoke, man. Troops don't want the smoke. I know he's got that little guy that he like grabs and holds and yells at, but you don't want the smoke. I will put Troops in his place. Send it to him. Send it to him. But shout out to those guys. We're in 2 different lanes, but whatever they're doing, I think they're doing a good job at it. I don't like how they kind of create that toxic environment, but besides that, like, power to them. And who knows, we'll see. With your help, all the Arsenal supporters, we'll get there. Tuchel hasn't been announced yet, to my knowledge. And yes, he should be sacked. To get on to end this quickly in terms of Frank, yes, I like I said, I guess if we're basing it on, would he be able to get Chelsea to where I think they should be? And was he struggling? Yes, he was struggling. Did he deserve to be sacked? I would have gave him a bit more time, but if they felt like they needed to do it, totally understandable. My issue is that the board, he was never fit to be the manager to take the club to where they want him to be. So they are at fault for that. And they're at fault for signing these players and expecting him to magically put together a title run or potentially a top 4 given the circumstances. Too many signings. Unless you're addressing the issues and not shaking up the balance of the squad, you didn't need that many signings. So that was kind of my thing with them. But I mean, it sucks for Frank. I understand it. But if the club is trying to be ambitious, you just got to hope that the board shapes up. I don't have much faith in them, but if you're a Chelsea fan, then you got to hope that eventually the board, develops a direction and develops the ability to pinpoint a manager and stick with his philosophy rather than getting a manager, buying a bunch of players that you think may fit him or you want to have, and you're forcing him to put them together. And on top of that, expecting him to win instantly. I think that's a big reach. And I think it's at this time with so many good teams, it's just not the plan. And in terms of Tuchel, we'll have to wait and see. I think he's an upgrade on Frank. I don't think he's the greatest manager. I think he's flawed. But at the end of the day, if they feel like they weren't going to reach their goals, and they feel like Tuchel could get there, then get that done. And if you're not going to fully back Tuchel going forward, then bring in a manager that you're going to fully back, bring him the resources, and let shit happen. There's no rush. Losing 4 games, 5 games, having a bad month is not the end of the world if you have faith in the manager and what he's going to do. And if you don't have faith in the manager and what you think he should be doing, then you shouldn't have hired him in the first place. I think Chelsea Football Club, need to do a better job in scouting players and finding the proper manager to maximize the players that they want at the club. And that's about it. But yeah, guys, I kind of run through everything. Like I said, I got to finish this Martin video or get close to finishing it. Should have a video on Martin, I want to say tomorrow, but then if Arsenal play Southampton tomorrow, I'm probably going to get that video out and then put the video out after that. But we'll see how it goes. But I'm going to try and finish it tonight. To be honest, in terms of Martin, yes, your recruitment strategy is very suspect and it needs to improve. In terms of Martin, I don't think he raises the ceiling for Arsenal unless they're able to keep him and he develops on schedule and becomes a stud. But he definitely does improve what they have, and I think it's good to have that addition and potentially try and sway him. But I have a like little small video. Try to use games from this season, because I don't think going back a year or so is fair when he necessarily didn't play bad this season, just didn't fit what Real Madrid have and what they're trying to do. So besides that, I think we're good, man. An hour 15. Yes. Okay, you guys are killing me, man. You guys are getting your last questions. And Iman, yes, I 100% agree. You bring in a system manager. We've seen this happen time and time again. We saw it happen with Sarri, Villas Boas, Kante to a degree. I mean, if you're going to bring in a manager that heavily relies on a system and then not bring him the players needed to maximize that system and then help sustain that, then why are you bringing him in? That's my thing. I think, and that goes back to my point from last season, was that I don't think they had to really shake things up with the Havertz and Werner signing. I think, yes, left back, goalie, right-sided attacking player, that's fine. That was good. I think instead of getting Havertz, definitely like a defensive midfielder in the mold of a Declan Rice would have been good. And if Frank wanted a center back, yeah, but they got Thiago Silva, so I guess that balances things out short term. And someone that could play passes in that midfield zone. They're not far away, but they need some balance and I think some patience and some consistency with their approach, and things will fly. But in terms of what they were doing a decade ago and chopping and changing managers, that's not going to work when there are other good teams at your level or a bit higher. You're not going to win the league that way, and you're not going to win in Europe that way. You may win a domestic cup. So that's my thing on Chelsea. But yeah, guys, if you have any more questions, hit the comment section below. Like I said, subscribe. If you know Chelsea fans, plug this to them, share this to them. And like I said, videos throughout the week. And on top of that, I'm gonna go back and live stream. No more technical difficulties. I'm gonna live stream again on Friday, and we're gonna talk about Manchester United. I think, unless something crazy happens this week. But we're gonna talk about United, and we're gonna get that all out of the way. But hope you guys have a great night, morning. It's night over here. I don't know what time it is over where you guys are at, but I hope you guys have a good one. Stay safe. And yeah, more videos to come tomorrow, stream later on. And I hope you guys have a good one. Peace, love. Appreciate you all. Without you, none of this would be possible. And I hope you guys have a great day/night. Love.